Train tracks carry some of the heaviest machines ever built. Massive steel locomotives, thousands of tons moving at incredible speed. But hidden beneath every railway track is something surprisingly ordinary. Rocks. Just crushed stones. And strangely enough, those stones are one of the most important inventions in railway history, because without them, modern trains wouldn't exist. Most people think railway tracks are simply placed on the ground. Steel rails, wooden sleepers, done. Simple. But if engineers actually built railways that way, the tracks would slowly sink, shift, flood, crack, and twist apart under the enormous weight of passing trains. And early railways learned that lesson the hard way. Back in the early 1800s, when rail transport was still new, engineers faced a terrifying problem. The heavier trains became, the more unstable the tracks became. Rails would bend, mud would swallow sections of track, rainwater weakened the soil underneath, and after repeated train passes, the ground slowly deformed. Some railways became so rough and unstable, passengers compared the ride to surviving an
Earthquake. At first, engineers tried the obvious solution: build directly on hard soil. But the earth underneath behaved unpredictably. In dry weather, it hardened. In rain, it softened. And under thousands of tons of pressure, it shifted constantly. Tracks moved out of alignment, wheels wore down faster. Derailments became a serious danger. Railway companies were desperate for a solution. And surprisingly, the answer came from broken rocks. Engineers discovered that crushed stone created something almost magical beneath the tracks: a flexible foundation, strong enough to support enormous weight, but loose enough to absorb movement and vibration. This layer became known as ballast, and it completely changed railway engineering forever. Here's why ballast is so brilliant.
First, it spreads the massive weight of the train across a larger area. Instead of thousands of tons crushing one section of soil, the pressure gets distributed through millions of interlocking stones. Second, the stones absorb vibration. Every passing train creates constant shaking and impact forces. Without ballast, those vibrations would damage the track structure and destabilize the ground underneath. But the crushed stones act like a giant shock absorber. And there's another hidden reason ballast matters: water. Rain is one of the greatest enemies of railway systems. If water collects beneath tracks, the soil weakens, the ground shifts, and the rails become dangerous. But ballast allows water to drain away naturally through the gaps between the stones. And engineers discovered something else unexpectedly useful. Plants hate ballast. The crushed rocks make it difficult for weeds and large vegetation to grow beneath the tracks, because roots can slowly destroy track stability over time. But here's the truly fascinating part. The stones don't just support the tracks, they actually help hold them in place.
When trains move at high speed, they create powerful sideways forces, especially on curves. Without resistance, the rails would slowly spread apart or shift sideways over time. But the rough, angular stones lock together tightly, gripping the sleepers and preventing movement. The entire railway system quietly holds itself together through friction and geometry. Now, here's where history gets interesting. Not all stones worked. Early engineers experimented with smooth river rocks and failed badly. The rounded stones rolled against each other under pressure. Tracks became unstable. Maintenance costs exploded. Then engineers realized crushed angular rocks interlocked far better than smooth stones. That single discovery transformed railway durability. And as trains became faster during the 20th century, railway ballast became even more important. High-speed trains generate enormous dynamic forces.
tiny imperfections in track alignment can become catastrophic at extreme speeds. That's why modern railways constantly inspect, clean, and replace ballast using giant maintenance machines worth millions of dollars.
Some modern systems even use lasers and sensors to measure track movement down to millimeters, all because of a layer of crushed stones most passengers never even notice exists. And strangely enough, one of the most important inventions in transportation history is something people walk past every day without thinking twice about it. So, the next time you see a train rushing down the tracks, look beneath the rails, because hidden underneath those massive machines is a bed of carefully engineered stone, quietly carrying the weight of the modern world.